Okay, so I'm going to summarize this video very quickly because we actually were starting to do this video and have audio issues. If you guys can hear me okay, let me know. Old school truck driver let me know there that he couldn't hear me that well, and then I noticed there was an audio issue. So let me know if you can hear me properly now. Now, with that said, this video is specifically about how anti-American protesters are created. This is like parts of groups, Antifa and things like that, where they're saying that certain individuals should have rights, some individuals shouldn't have rights, and they're about reducing the amount of rights that Americans traditionally have. Do I sound okay for you guys? Let me know. Also, it is interesting because I did have audio issues with another video that covered similar topics to this. So there's always that aspect of it as well. But I will be summarizing now in a very big way. Here's the thing. The SSA is removing a lot of restrictions on SSI, SSDI, retired people when it comes to those things that reduce their benefits. They're focusing mostly on SSI people right now, supplemental security income people, because those are the true impoverished. You're retired over 65, disabled who haven't paid into the system, and of course your entrants, those who are refugees, asylum seekers, etc. Right? And so a lot of people are, of course, not too happy about those individuals getting so much SSI benefits so quickly, but it is what it is. That's not what this video is about. Now, let's get into this real quick. What do you need to know about the future of what's going to happen? The SSA is going to systematically reduce restrictions that will increase the likelihood of you receiving the maximum amount of your benefits. Why? The SSA, like many of the different aspects of the government, is worried about people who are getting stuck below a certain poverty line. Now, we all know that you can make it in America with a certain amount of money in certain areas. And a lot of these disabled individuals are getting stuck where they don't have enough money to meet the bare necessities that they need to be able to survive. That creates these little soldiers who basically have nothing to lose. When you're disabled and you can't work and you can't get enough money per check, you have nothing to lose. That's similar to an elderly person that's 70 plus years old who basically is stuck in a similar situation where they've worked their entire life and now cannot afford to stay in the house that they currently live in. As a result, Americans who have been culturally really restricted compared to how they were way back in the day when the country was being started are now starting to rise up and talk about how unhappy they are. However, there are groups that go and capture those individuals when they're passing into that situation. Now, many of you don't think about essentially what's happening. What's happening is there's super big tariffs that make things very expensive because things are produced overseas and we're giving them super taxes before they can come over here, right? Trump started with those. Biden continued them. Biden wanted the money. He got the money from them. That's why he didn't end them. Same thing when it comes to, of course, COVID and basically messing with the petrodollar and not doing the proper things that were needed to do with selling lots of oil and basically making lots of money. Biden, for 3 years of his presidency, was super left Democrat and did not handle things properly with the petrodollar. But in his final year, he's now the biggest exporter ever among all the presidents considered. So he went super Republican to get the money. He had to make his numbers look better in the final year. What that means is this. It means that America is now going through a shift. And the problem is that the SSI benefits in and of themselves, or SSI in combination with SSDI or retirement benefits, are not enough to keep people above a certain line. There are, as a result of that, certain groups that go out and find people who are mentally disabled, who are physically disabled, who are willing to join up with a group that doesn't require a heck of a lot from them, but does allow them to have enough money to be able to survive. Now, I have represented people who are part of Antifa. I have represented people who are part of other anti-American protest groups, okay? Anti-capitalism, anti-fascism, etc. Now, as you know, with capitalism, it's all about taking money, making money off of people who basically work for you. That's why we have employers and employees. The employers create the business, they take on all the risk. The employees then go ahead and work for that business for a smaller amount. Whatever we pay them, it's less than what they made from their work product. That is capitalism. Okay. Now, with that said, these individuals that can't work, these individuals who are too mentally unsound, these individuals who are physically not capable, they're looking for a way to have more financial capabilities, not necessarily freedom or to live, for example, comfortably. That's out of the realm. That's just not going to happen. But having money coming into you as a disabled person means far more than, for example, an individual who's working right now at a job, getting a paycheck over and over and over again. So the thing is this, okay, and I want to go through this real quick. These individuals that are mentally disabled people, some of them have aggression. A lot of people are walking down the same street that you do, but they all have things, right? So imagine a disabled person walking down the street, another middle-class person walking down the street. The middle-class person has some nice shoes. Maybe they got a nice phone. The disabled person has nothing. They're pissed off. They're not happy. They don't have the stuff that they want. Now, these individuals are prime candidates for getting recruited into organizations like Antifa, anti-Zionist, on and on. You get a check, you go where they drop you off, and you do your job. If you go to jail, you get bailed out. And as long as you aren't in jail for more than 30 days, you get to keep your check from the Social Security Administration. So to answer the question, is the government, okay, in part funding action groups that are marching against different political parties, including, government in general? Yeah, sort of, kind of, because the government isn't paying people enough on these benefits to be able to survive. And then, of course, the government restricts people if they try to go work or taxes extra money that they make. People are at the line where they don't care. And that's not good, because unfortunately, those individuals now have to face a third world-esque version of America. And if you really ask me, that is really the third world-esque part of America. Being on disability benefits, being on only retirement benefits, being on only supplemental security income benefits, that's your third world version of America. And our government is purposely funding it that way. But now they have a problem. They're not paying enough per month, and people can't survive. So as a result of this, people have time to protest, right? Students, teachers, politicians, disabled people. Those are the people that they're looking to recruit for these things. Now, as a result, that's your target audience. That's who usually will get picked up by these groups to go ahead and partake in these things. Now, the prevalence of this explodes upward when the amount of people who can barely have the essentials seek an alternate life with more. They just want to have more because what they have is not enough. $100 a day, $200 a day in non-taxable income, it's a way. Something that, again, is going to be incredibly unpopular to say, but you need to open your brain to the idea and think about this. Many modern people are failed by a lot of the traditional religions that they go and become a part of. Okay, whether it's Judaism, Christianity, Muslim, any one of these religions, could be Scientology, etc. All religions take time, they take effort, they take thought, and most of the time, and it always is this way, it takes money to practice them. People always tell me that religion doesn't take any money, it doesn't cost anything. And then ultimately, a lot of them come back to me and say, you know what? It does, right? It takes time to go ahead and, do transportation to the location that you want to practice that religion. You're spending time doing it, which means it's money is time. You're not doing something else, which could make you more money. There are, electrical signals to your phone, to your TV, the cost of the TV to watch. Maybe a pastor or a rabbi talk about it. So there's costs of religion. It's never free. It's never been free. Some people stay the path and they have purpose, but others find another path in these anti-groups. Not everyone gets to feel that presence of God, and not everyone gets a cheap apartment, and not everyone gets multiple checks, and not everyone is smart with their money, and some people have crisis after crisis happen to them. It's a tough thing, and it happens to people. And they lose everything that took them potentially 40 years to be able to put together. Could be 20 years, could be 60 years, but some of them lose everything. This video is not about saying, who is good and who is bad, but it's designed to make you ask the question of how these modern propaganda armies started to form and then grew and grew. The reason for this is that every country is either fighting to survive another day, or the country is the big bad that everyone else has to play ball with, like America. Imagine being in a prison yard. Okay, so we're in a big prison yard. Okay, now imagine that you're in this prison yard, right? And the bottom line is that you see in this prison yard, there are these 7-foot tall behemoths, and they are surrounded by groups of people who support and nourish those those giants, those behemoths, these huge people. That's what countries are. Now, if you place a baseball bat in the hand of one of those behemoths, you get a country like Britain, and maybe a knife in another giant's hand, and you get Spain, and maybe, this or that, and you get Australia, you get Taiwan, you get Sweden, you get Russia, you get China, you get America, on, right? And, basically China would be like a satellite with lasers that could shoot things down, okay? The point is we spend most of our money on allies and defense because in the prison yard, only those who team up to survive will actually survive. Each one of these groups that enlists people is like a prison yard gang. Antifa is enlisting people, and all these other groups. They got to get people on board. They got to get people to join. And they're trying to just survive another day. America isn't above that. Just like, Christianity or Judaism or the Muslim religion is not above that. More wars have been fought over Judaism than America has fought. The same thing is even more true for Christianity. Even more wars. More big fights in that prison yard to see who will survive to the next day. Which brings me to my final point here. Hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. Weak people join groups for life stability that ends with bad times, okay? Bad times create hardened people, and hardened people create these good times, and on and on and on, right? That we all know the quote. The silent generation overcame war to create the good times that the greatest generation who came before them, right, dreamed of during World War I. So you have the greatest generation, they have the silent generation. Greatest generation had World War I. Silent generation came after that. Then the boomers sold America's manufacturing, right, overseas as the weak generation that resulted from the good times. I know some of the boomers are going to say, no, we're the strongest generation. No. Silent generation, far superior than the boomer generation. Greatest generation, far superior to the boomer generation. The boomer generation is the result of World War I people and World War II people. It's the literal result of the hard times people that equated to the good times people, right? Which were essentially the weak people, which were the boomers, who then sold a lot of our manufacturing overseas. Now, some of you will say, well, I didn't do that. It's not a you thing. It's your particular generation thing. Remember, I didn't do that. I didn't know that. It's not a you thing. It's the entire generation. How did the generation do? Okay. Now, the Gen Y and the millennials are experiencing the tragedies and choices that were created by selling and sending all of our manufacturing overseas. My generation will experience a world war, very likely. Okay. But the question becomes, will Gen Z and Gen Alpha, right? Those are the people that were just recently born or being born right now, being the people, who are like literally, you could have a 10-year-old, you could have a 1-year-old that are in those groups. Well, the question is, will they sell America's ability to keep production in-house so that it doesn't go into the hands of foreign nations? Or will they learn this time, to basically not send what we need to make stuff to other countries? It becomes a good question. Will we essentially learn from the mistakes that took World War I and World War II of tough people to make it into the boomers who resulted from World War II, which were the, unfortunately the weak people in this, in this ideology, who sold all this stuff overseas to make more money quickly, and then of course destroy the capacity of future generations to make and produce and manufacture more things. Now, some people still work in manufacturing plants, but not mostly in America. In America, if you go watch the videos about individuals who own mega companies or are the CEO of mega companies like Apple or the chip manufacturers, they literally cannot have manufacturing in this country because there are not enough skilled people to do those jobs. They're just not here anymore. So the question becomes, will Gen Z, will Gen Alpha, learn from the mistakes of who have to become hardened people and work 2 to 3 jobs, like the millennials and the Gen Yers and all these future generations, will they learn from this now becoming a hard time situation? I don't know, but I know this. The disabled are very likely to see the SSA trying to remove restrictions on their benefits that either tax them more or reduce them across a certain line because they're worried. They know that people receiving these benefits cannot go ahead and survive. And when you have a program designed specifically with the purpose of limiting people from working, because that's the proving point that they are disabled, then how are those people supposed to get more money? Well, you got the 9-month trial work period, and you got the 3-month extended eligibility period, and then you got the 5-year ticket to work program period. Sure, you have those. But the overall arching problem is that the monthly benefit that people receive is not enough. You are going to see a lot of people seeking some form of cash from groups over the next 2 months that will allow them to have some money and purpose. And as a result of that, that's where these people come from. And I represent some of them. I know them. They've asked me questions about what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do when it comes to basically joining a group. A couple of them were specifically Antifa. And Antifa, just from my understanding of it, is looking for particular types of mental impairment individuals, because the individuals that I talked to about it all lined up with those particular mental impairments. So it is an interesting situation. Now, do I know anybody at Antifa, like the actual headquarters group, things like that? No. Do I interact with them? No. I just represent people who are disabled who have worked with them. And I will say this, it is important to understand that when it comes to the future of the disabled, America does not significantly cater towards the future of Social Security benefits. The Republicans are very good at complaining that we're paying too much to run the administration, when the exact opposite is true. They don't pay the employees enough. They can't get enough talent to go ahead and process these claims. The wait time to get disability benefits is extreme and horrific, and it's only getting worse. That's not Commissioner Martin O'Malley's fault. It is purely he does not have enough money to fund the next year at the current levels that he has. So what's the solution? There has to be a shift where the American government and the American people, the politicians, the senators, the House reps, and even the president, whoever is chosen, there has to be a shift where that individual and those senators and House reps and local state and local county people appreciate the need for Social Security benefits. But there is a major thing that is going to throw a wrench in that whole situation. America pays for Social Security benefits by essentially two main ways. FICA taxes, it's what you pay in for Medicare, retirement, disability, and general taxes, supplemental security income benefits. That's how they pay for that stuff. They pay for the agencies in a similar way. But the bottom line is this. At the end of the day, they are in it's a rotating, terrible timeline of not having enough money. The credit cards of the senators and House reps and the president of the United States are completely maxed out, and they can't afford their interest payments on the monthly dues. Now, what does that mean? It means that going forward, the American government is going to be less likely to want to fix Social Security benefits under its current design. Because under its current design, people are getting so much, and they would prefer that people not get as much because they're not going to have as much money to go ahead and spend on Social Security benefits going forward, which means realistically, there's no magical investments coming to pump up the retirement trust fund that's supposed to run out somewhere in 2033 to 2035. And the interesting part about it is that because the government has lost a lot of interest in funding the SSA's administration and lost a lot of interest in paying for the retired and the disabled, amounts of money that they were already promised, I can already foresee in the future that there will be a lawsuit against the government seeking that very simply put, the American people, right, should not be able to receive certain benefits. But on the counter side to that, you have the SSA, who is trying to make sure, through Commissioner Martin O'Malley, that these SSI individuals, SSDI individuals, retirement individuals get the maximum amount that they do. Because what happens is, what group will become extremely mad and hostile towards the SSA if the benefits that the SSA pays out are so small that they can't survive? Well, you got it. The recipients. The recipients become security risks because, bottom line is, if they don't receive enough to survive, then they don't receive enough to live to the next month. And then all of a sudden, you have a huge, massive problem because you have people who are willing to lose something very important to make a point. So I've noticed that the SSA for SSI, 1/3 reduction rule, the in-kind support and maintenance rule, they're getting rid of the food thing. They're redefining, the living accommodations. They're redefining, who's giving you what in a loan situation. They're redefining things to make it so that you're most likely to get the maximum amount of SSI benefits. We're starting to see more of a push towards the SSDI benefits and the retirement benefits. I will say this. I think Commissioner Martin O'Malley understands what's going on. I think he has a pretty good understanding that if they don't get more money into the hands of the disabled or retired, that they are going to have a massive group of people that have no intention of just proving their point with votes at a presidential election. Where does all this go? I think that at the end of the day, you're going to be seeing a surge of disabled people and retired people using social media to make more money. I think that the disabled will learn how to create fake accounts that will have funds deposited into somebody else's name for a bank account. And that person will just pay taxes and then hand those funds over to the disabled person in cash. But I think the disabled, with all these new social media options out there, will find ways to make more money. And one of the big things is by creating content that's relevant in the political vacuum. And you better believe the disabled are going to become very adept, very knowledgeable, very incredibly strong-minded on creating content that basically provides and shows how the disabled don't have enough, how the government doesn't care about them, how the government isn't doing enough for them. And when that happens, when the entire army of disabled and retired people start to fight back, start to change society's viewpoint on essentially those who are disabled, retired, widows benefits, disabled child benefits, supplemental security income benefits, when they start to do that, that is when this whole thing is going to change. The government right now is working with all these social media channels, right? Or rather platforms, right? So YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. And all these platforms have switched over to a pay-to-play boost method. What is the pay-to-pay boost method? If somebody pays money, their video is more likely to show up in your recommended list so that you will see that video. And that's the thing, is Republicans and Democrats are spending a lot of money right now to go ahead and have their videos put up in the suggested video list. And the reality of it is that all the people who traditionally make videos are now much lower because they're not paying in all this money, because they're the ones who normally create the content. And there are people that are creating content commercially to go ahead and pay money to these platforms to get product placement. Now, with that said, it is interesting. I am seeing people who are getting, snatched up and put into these anti-American protest groups, your Antifa stuff. I'm also seeing some of these disabled people becoming more active online about essentially who they support, what they think is going on, etc. And remember, this video was scheduled to be made before the second Trump assassination attempt even occurred. That's why we're not talking about it, but obviously it's related to that. So the point here is this. And I see old school truck driver, let's go boomers, but raise 3 kids, not of my making. So here's the thing, and that's the sad thing too, is that like from a millennial standpoint, we can't afford kids like the boomer generation could. And it's really scary. And they realize that. That's why they kept funding young parents with young kids. That's why the government on the left, with the Democrats, and the right with the Republicans, kept sending money to parents with young kids. I see the exact thing in the future happening with disabled. Because the thing is, if they don't find a way to fund the disabled and retired, that is a literal entire army's worth of people who are going to become a problem for the federal government as it exists. So as a result of that, we've covered a lot of stuff. I hope you understand, why this is happening. I foresee if Trump gets in, Martin O'Malley will basically be terminated, which is not a good thing. And they'll put somebody else in. Martin O'Malley is a very strong, very good option for the Social Security Administration. However, if we get Harris, not much is going to happen across the board because she's just not active. She doesn't do interviews. She's just not active, right? So it's just more of Biden. That's what we'll end up with. And Biden, a lot of problems with how he handled oil, a lot of problems with how he handled farming and how he took care of the farmers, a lot of issues there. So from my perspective, I think what we're going to be seeing in the not too distant future is that the Social Security Administration under Commissioner Martin O'Malley will continue to try and boost benefits by removing restrictions and removing things that he has control over. Whether or not Trump/Kamala get in, right? VP Kamala or past President Trump, whether or not they get in and end, basically taxes on retirement benefits, we'll have to see. We will have to see. But just remember, this is the moment. You're 2 months away from the presidential election occurring. You're 2 months. That means any promises that are going to be made for Social Security benefits from the left and the right are going to be made right now. Once they're elected, what they actually get passed through, what they actually get through the senators, the House reps, you saw it. Tons of promises with Biden's group, the Biden-Harris team. Very little was actually presented. The pre-White House website, very well laid out for them. They did a great job on it. Most of those things not even touched. Or if they were touched, they made it into the first round of contract discussions. Second round, they were pulled out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will catch you a little bit later. And I think the main thing is that and I saw this little comment. I saw Yaya Vibe. Who has the energy to fight the government? I can guarantee you the disabled and retired are going to be fighting the government more. They're going to be more proactive with politics than ever before because they just don't have enough money to buy the basics. And when that happens, they get aggressive and they get angry and they're going to be changing things. I can guarantee it. So with that said, that's a good question. Furry Plants and Coins said, Walter, who would you pick on the Republican side for the SSA? I would keep Commissioner Martin O'Malley because Commissioner Martin O'Malley is not a super left Democrat. He is slightly left, I think, of RFK, but he is doing an amazing job. He's recognizing the problems. He's working through them. He's doing an amazing job. Having somebody like Trump who's good at fixing the economy. And of course, you're always going to get the Democrats who say with him, oh, he's bankrupt every company he's ever had. That's not true. It's never been true. He has had major downs and major ups. That's how business owners go. That's literally what it is. It's tough to explain to people who have no experience with owning businesses at that level or owning businesses that are successful. But owning a successful business, I've owned many companies before my law firm. Many of them failed. There was no way to make them succeed. There wasn't a market for it, or the market changed and the product was no longer used. The product was no longer needed. It is what it is. But explaining that to poor individuals who don't have a background in owning companies or starting companies, you can't, it won't go through. It won't register. And what happens is you get individuals who are like, he's, been sued 1,000 times. Yeah, at that level, that happens all the time. Walmart gets sued every day. Okay. Everybody that's a super up there individual has lawsuits that are currently going against them. There are very, very few wealthy people that don't have lawsuits that are currently going on. And that's because they just live in a different financial structure, right? They're constantly trying to protect their assets. If somebody doesn't deliver, they're constantly having to go and sue to make sure that they get, equitable outcome. it's just a different world. So if it were me, I would keep Martin O'Malley. He's a great Democrat. He's a great presidential option for the Democrats. Way better than Harris. Way better than Harris. They're not even on the same. You can't even put those in the same sentence. Harris is being presented because President Biden needs somebody to take over the Department of Justice to make sure whatever happens after he gets out of office, he can be essentially given immunity through the next presidential option being Harris. That's why she was put up, because he needed the next person in to back him once. I mean, and this is, many of you don't realize this, but the moment President Biden leaves office, there are going to be lawsuits after lawsuits after lawsuits. Many of them are going to be criminal and civil in nature that are going to be filed against him. He is going to be feeling more lawsuits than probably even Donald Trump is right now. And as a result of that, he wants somebody with the Department of Justice who can bend, right, the rule, who can go ahead and squash things, right, and not allow things to continue forward. That's why Harris is being brought forward. It's not because she's amazing and she's brilliant and she's incredible. It's because she is the person who is his vice president that he trusts to go ahead and anytime a criminal lawsuit occurs against President Biden, she would go ahead and forgive it. Get rid of it, gone, no worries. Now, the civil stuff, he's still going to get hit with. And that's still going to go through, and they're going to file a bunch of stuff against him. And what's interesting is this. What's really interesting is this. Ultimately, Princess, let's see, Diana, let me see if I got the donation. I did. There we go. Thank you. There it is right there. Thank you for the 99-cent donation. That's awesome. Love the little sleepyhead thing there. That's cool. Very cool. So the problem is, and let's see, I've got another comment here. Charlton Zimmerman, I guess because Donald is looking up for Laura Loomer and moving on from Melania. But Charlton, the whole like that versus this other person, or who's his wife or who's his future wife. It's all like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, do you ever sit back and think about this stuff where the Democrats and the Republicans throw mud at each other, and it's always about trying to destroy the person because they can't destroy the ideas, right? Being tough on China with negotiations, great idea, but they can't attack that. They can't destroy it. So they'll attack how Donald Trump is with his wife, how Donald Trump is with his kids, how Donald Trump is with his golf swing, how Donald Trump is with his businesses, right? That's how they'll attack him, because they won't attack him on economic presence, creating a better military, creating a better economy, having, these horrible cost of living adjustments become much smaller dollar amounts so that we don't have massive runaway inflation. And it was weird too, because it was right at the election when Biden was being put in place that people were just starting to learn that a high cost of living adjustment means that the average retired and disabled people got completely screwed. The higher the increase that a person got on a month-to-month basis going into the next year meant that they got really screwed, because their dollar, the inflation problem was way worse than what they were going to get in extra money. If you had a 10% COLA increase, that means that you weren't getting anywhere near what the actual cost increase was, which could have been 20, 30, 40% actual increase. But remember, that didn't happen. People didn't get that. They didn't learn that until Biden was starting to get in and these things were being explained, because there was an expectation of cost of living adjustment. And then they learned from the nonprofits, right, that people were getting screwed over every single year and receiving over $500 less per month as a result of the SSA and the federal government changing how these cost of living adjustment math equations were actually being applied. But they didn't know that. That was new to them. People used to be like, yes, massive cost of living adjustment number. Oh, thank goodness. They sold that shit left and right. But they didn't know until when Biden was getting in around that point, that at that point they were getting screwed over. Now they know. So it's been interesting. It's been really interesting to see how the average disabled person is essentially becoming aware of all the shitty things that Democrats do and all the shitty things Republicans do. And if I were just to simplify, if I were to solidify and just bake it down to those things that the Republicans do poorly and those things the Democrats do poorly, the Republicans are total shitheads when it comes to funding the Social Security Administration. They're constantly trying to cut that agency so that it can't afford to administer the benefits that are due to people. Worst thing they could do for Social Security benefits. That's why you got to wait 40 minutes on the phone. That's why it takes damn near 17 to 18 months to get an adjudication for disability benefits for the average person. That's why. Then on the other side, you have Democrats. Democrats make lots of promises, put out a bunch of fake bills that will never get passed about increasing, benefits. And to be fair, all they do is tax. They find ways to request taxes, start new taxes, do new taxes, taxes. The middle class is closed for business when it comes to taxes. There are no new taxes that you can put on them. They have no savings. Their credit cards are maxed. It's over. There's no recovery from that under the current model. There's no recovery. So you have Republicans who are better at the economy. They're better at the economy because they set things up for a longer term financial growth that does better. They do better with the economy. Then you have please, if you're Democrat, if you want to disagree with that, come on. Like, just be a little bit realistic with your brain. You know what I mean? Just a little bit of reality there. Then you have Democrats who are really good with civil rights. Both groups need each other, right? The Democrats push the line on everything. They have more bad ideas than anybody, but they've got ideas, and those ideas are the future. Most of them will fail because they're shit ideas, but some of them are good ideas that are amazing that we need to look at. The Republicans, they're on defense, right? They're on defense. They're the hot chick sitting there telling people, I don't like this, I don't want that, all that stuff, right? They're on defense. They like the way the things are. They know how things work. They don't want to change. Some of that's religious preference. Some of that is just, I'm old in my ways and I like it this way. They have a system that works. They're trying to, the Democrats, change things. So that's why we have this, butting of heads between these two. But we need them both. We need the Democrats and the Republicans because the Democrats have to show us a bunch of roads to the future. And the Republicans have to fight with them to see which roads would be best. That's why we need them. We need both of them. But to be fair, when it comes to Social Security benefits, both sides are shit. Both sides are shit. At the end of the day, if Republicans cared so much about the middle class who are going to become retired and disabled, who are paying in all these taxes and FICA taxes, then why not fund the Social Security Administration better so that it ultimately is able to produce and administer these benefits in a better way? You could easily do that. There would be no problem. Why not do it? Why not? Because the Republican side is not focusing enough on the future of this program because Republicans like capitalism, not socialism. Socialism is Social Security Administration benefits, which, you could just do a subtag, a subheader, the subheader of Social Security benefits. Okay? Subheader is people suck at saving, so we made them do this. That's Social Security benefits. They suck at saving in case they become disabled. They suck at saving for their ultimate retirement, so we force them to pay a tax. That is the definition of our Social Security benefit system. And then over here, you have Democrats. Democrats, if you could give a bunch of Republicans some educational material on why civil rights need to be, pushed and why the future of America is more Americans having more freedom when it comes to who they are as a person, it would be good. It would be a good thing. And if you gave to Democrats a goddamn class on economics, anything on economics, we would be in a much better spot. It is incredibly moronic, and I see this happening with Canada. It is incredibly moronic for them to have a tax on their citizens, a carbon tax. The government in Canada has failed, just like America, at fixing almost everything that they intended to fix, other than military conquest and getting to the moon. Otherwise, all of their long-term this and that, they failed it. Tell me, if Trump or Harris came out tomorrow and said, you know what, we're gonna do a carbon. Well, it wouldn't come from Trump; it would come from Harris. If Harris came out and said, you know what, we're gonna go ahead, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do a carbon tax, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do a carbon tax. How many of you disabled would be willing to pay a tax on your disability benefits as a result of your carbon footprint? How many of you retired would be willing to pay it on your retirement benefits? And don't tell me they can't tax those benefits. Don't tell me they can't. They will find a way to pass it through. DV said, is the head of the SSA better than Trump? I wouldn't say that. I would say that they would be an awesome team. Trump in office and a Commissioner Martin O'Malley at the SSA. And I mean, remember, the only reason Commissioner Martin O'Malley is a lion of an individual with a giant mane, roaring forward into the future of achieving these great things for the SSA is because he wants to be president one day. That's the whole point of this. He's on a save the SSA mission to one day become president. We've never had a setup like that. That's why we've never seen a commissioner achieving and doing so many great things, because the emphasis wasn't there. It just didn't exist. Like, nobody comes from the SSA to be president. Nobody does. It's just not how it works, right? They come from other fields. They come from, like, the DOD, the DOJ, ambassadorship. They come from those places. They don't come from the Social Security Administration. What would be amazing would be a Trump economy in combination with a Commissioner Martin O'Malley SSA, and then potentially having a Commissioner Martin O'Malley turn into a president after Trump that would focus specifically on fixing the SSA. Because remember, trust funds are running out. Medicare has tons of issues. SSI is growing way too fast for the amount of immigrants, that are going onto it. There's a lot of problems here. So, and you have to understand too, like when I see some of the comments, Princess said, Walter, do you think things will ever improve? Absolutely. They're improving right now. But the problem is there's no money, right? The government can't print money. The government can't get more loans of money. They can't afford the loans they already have. And if they print more money, they'll affect their reserve currency status with other nations. We're in a tough spot. Because normally when you want to make more money or you want to fix something, you have to spend money. We can't spend anything as a nation. We've already spent it. We're in loan. We're like, there's no savings. Now, people will say, we'll just keep printing. We'll just keep printing. We can't. Other countries buy our currency to spend on stuff that they want to spend it on. But they're not going to do that if our currency keeps devaluing at a significant quick rate. Which means that if we don't protect our currency better than what we've had over the past 3+ years, then we're going to end up in a spot where other countries aren't buying our currency. And if other countries don't borrow our currency, guess what happens? Americans can't borrow any money from banks because there's not enough currency out there swirling around to borrow against. So, the thing is this, the Republicans have to learn that not everybody is like them. And that basically some groups need more civil protection rights. Okay, they got to learn that, right? The gay, LGBTQ groups, right? They're targeted all the time. They need special protections. Are they, as sold by the Republican people as horrible, terrible, evil people? Obviously not. Obviously not. But is it something where, Republicans look at this and they're like, well, they're not like us. Something to be worried about, something to be scared about? Absolutely. Look at the history of the whole thing. Now, on the other side, you have the Democrats who want to push that all the way to the extremes, where that you have them changing legal standards for the abuse of, people who don't have a voice in this by individuals who do have a voice. And I'm talking about, what they're doing, a reclassification with criminal acts by individuals who are abusing, right, those younger persons. You have to have the two groups fighting each other and beating each other and being horrible to each other and trying to find a way through it all. But, there's a lot of dumb stuff out there. Like, think about this. Think about, let's see. Michael Wright said, you keep the opinions on what you do and not continue to influence your audience. Republicans have no interest in helping the poor and middle fall into autocracy. Yeah, Michael Wright, I disagree. We can't have another 4 years of total economic destruction like we did under Biden. And COVID didn't help. But if you believe that things were handled correctly, then please go and study the petrodollar. Have a better understanding of literally how our economy is completely held up by the petrodollar. It is not held up by wind energy dollars or solar energy dollars. It's held up by the petrodollar. So, when you ask me, and that's the other thing too, like, this video is specifically about essentially the politics that happen and why people are so unhappy on benefits. There's only one president right now. Like if President Trump gets in, we'll make videos that talk shit about the Republicans, just like we've talked shit about the Democrats, because then they would have the power. They don't have the power right now. They just don't have it. So, everybody you say, oh, you're being mean to the Democrats more, or this or that. They have all the power right now. They have the power. If they didn't have the power, then they wouldn't be relevant to what's actually going on. The things that are occurring are the result of their abilities to govern. It ain't that they just, poor them. No. They're in power right now. They're not like these side things, but for those Republicans. That's politics. Politics is always somebody fighting somebody, and sometimes you get an opening and you got to run through it. And that's it. That's how it works. So, and then Charlton Zimmerman, 2020 was my worst year. Couldn't get toilet paper under Trump. Had to use washcloth. Okay, cool. Awesome. Got it. And that's the thing is for each of them, right? There's another thing too. It is inbred into people. Like, I know Charlton Zimmerman has always been a Democrat. As Democrats go, as a Democrat is, he's always been a Democrat. And I know other people that watch this channel are Republicans, right? They've always been a Republican, never going to be not a Republican. So we only see each group focus on, realistically, the negatives that happened under that other election cycle, right? I was unhappy because this happened. Then I was unhappy because this. You can find a lot of things this year you can find a lot of things over the past 3.5 years that were way worse than what was happening, under the Trump era. You can, because you didn't have as much money. Everything was much more expensive. And basically, let's call it like it is. Dealing with the Social Security Administration kept getting more and more and more difficult because they didn't have enough money, which is ironically partly because of the Republicans. But, it is what it is. And you have to understand, from my perspective, when I watch people and I hear them talk about the problem, I hear them say, this is the issue and that's the issue. You don't get it. Like, there's not enough money for the recipients. There's not enough money because the government doesn't want to take investments and put it into the trust funds to help us continue to have these programs. Both sides are bleeding them out. The Republicans are bleeding them out from the agency side. They're not funding the agency well enough. The Democrats are bleeding them out because they are not finding a way to fix this or start to do things that would fix it. You ever sit back and think, right, we're getting to the end of President Biden's, he's got 2 months until the election. He had his 4 years, right? Did you ever sit back and think, why didn't he fix it? You can blame the Republicans, but he had full control there for a while, House and Senate. So the question I have to you is, right, and for all the people that are sitting back and they're like, oh, don't pick on Biden. I understand some of you love him. I understand it. Some of you love him. He's your baby. He's your boo. He's your elderly grandpa type of individual. I get it. I understand. I get it. Some of you really like him. I don't like him. I don't like Biden. I'm okay with Trump, but I also don't like a lot of his personality things. A lot of things about his personality piss me off, okay? But I definitely don't like Biden because I know with Biden, there's a lot of nefarious things occurring that are so bad for the disabled. And the disabled just sit there. Like, let me ask you this. When a Democrat says to you, we're not going to change Social Security benefits. We're not going to kill them off. We're not going to hurt them. We're just going to let them sit. You know now that if you do nothing and you just let it keep running, it dies. right? And then the Democrats will come out and say, okay, well, we have this little plan that'll never pass. It's going to tax basically the rich. It'll never pass. Get a better effing plan. If you think you can go ahead and present to the American people over and over and over and over, decade after effing decade, the same plan. If you think you can keep presenting that to the American people, and the American people will be so incredibly removed and stupid about it that they won't actually realize what you're doing, well, then you would be correct, because most of them are. That's the truth. Most Americans are still cool with the Democrat plan of just charging rich people more by, eliminating the cap on basically FICA taxes. Most Americans think that that's fine because the Democrats said it. Do you realize how many America as a country has massive amounts of investments, and it won't balance its books, and it can't use those investments or find a way to help pay into those trust funds so that in the future, those trust funds will last. And here's the part that I don't think people realize, because they just live in this la-la land of everything's going to be fine, which is dangerous. That shit is dangerous. The la-la land, everything's cool, everything's good, everything's going to be fine. 2033 is probably actually later. It's probably going to be 2031, 2032-ish area, because they got some numbers horrifically wrong when they calculated basically fertility rates and how many people are going to replace the current workers based on who's having babies and making more workers. 2031, 2032, let's say 7, 8, 9 years away, your benefits drop 20%. Are any of you going to be able to survive on a 20% reduction of benefits? Or are you still going to be voting for the same people you vote for? You tell me. I mean, you tell me. Do you think you can afford to lose 20% in 7 to 8 or 9 years of what you currently receive and still survive? You tell me. Yeah, but Charlton Zimmerman does a good point there. They blame veterans for losing certain wars. Although, have you noticed, America never technically loses any wars, But the point is, to be fair, and I think he makes a good point there too. When the disabled can't afford to be disabled, what then? I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. The disabled are going to go seek medical treatment in other countries or whatever's available in the US to get special prosthetics, brain chips, whatever, things that will go ahead and cure them of whatever impairment they have. That's what will happen. That's exactly what will happen, and here's why. When disability benefits are a punishment for a person to receive, not what they were 15 years ago, where people had parties when they were found disabled, where it was like, oh my God, I can live, I can breathe. No. We're talking the future. We're talking 7, 8 years in the future. When those benefits are about to run out and they can't pay for things for you to be able to survive, you tell me, what are you going to do? You're going to seek out whatever cures you can find and go get a job. That's exactly what you're going to do. Because if there's a cure out there, if there's a thing that could potentially fix it, you will go ahead and have to find it. Because if you can't survive, you have no other choice. That's the whole point of this script. That's what turns people into these groups where they're out there getting $100 a day, $200 a day to do basically, protests. It's because they don't have enough money to survive. I think the thing is this, and the next video we're going to be doing is on brain chips and whether or not the government can force you to get them. And many states are now signing legislation that brain chips, you can't force them. You can't force people to get, chips put into somebody's body. But I'm going to show you in the SSA code specifically why I think that there is something the SSA will use as a part of the culture to essentially get people to still get a chip in them. I'm going to show you the exact thing, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and it's a culture twister, and it's not good. And I see your responses too, and I think that's, so just Doom Pigeon said the current benefits and time to get them are a joke. Let's see politicians survive on the amount they hand out when we paid in. Furry Plant said, no, because I'm working part-time, can't physically do more than that. Are they going to change the money we're allowed to make if they cut us? Yes. I made a list for Democrats, and I showed them preference when I made the list because, to be fair, Democrats are just better with Social Security benefits usually. I mean, what's helping that immensely is Martin O'Malley. What's not helping that is Biden-Harris. But again, Biden picked Martin O'Malley. Martin O'Malley sees this as his opportunity to become president, so he is rocking it. I have another list for Trump on fixes for Social Security. They're all the little things that they can do to increase the likelihood that the disabled can earn more money and not be affected in any way. With the VA benefits, there's the two types, right? There's the 100% P&T where you can go and work, but watch out for OIG, and then the TDIU where you can't work. You're not allowed to work. I think what we need is a disability system that is focused more on allowing the disabled to have some income coming from somewhere, because the government can't afford to pay them anymore. And the reason the government can't afford to pay them is that they got the math wrong. That's one. And number two, they have no interest in taking our investments and rediverting those funds into the trust funds to make sure that they stay solvent. Weaselbox said, yeah, but everyone is addicted to the phone. Yeah, but remember, you can shoot an entire feature film on an iPhone 15 now. You can literally, here, I'll show you. You can literally go ahead and make products on an iPhone that are then published specifically to YouTube. So let me show you real quick. Splice. Splice is a program, right? Splice is a program you put on your phone. You shoot the videos with your phone, and then what do you get, right? Here's a sampler of what's coming up for... This is Attorney Walter Hnot with Disability Resolution PA, the most viewed and subscribed to Disability Attorney in America. Now, I'm giving you your disability vitamin today, which is a hearing question that you might... It's all done on the phone. That video was shot on the phone. It was edited on the phone. The font came from the phone. The music came on the phone. The audio enhancement came on the phone. The video color enhancements came on the phone. Everything was done on the phone. The disabled are going to have ways that they can make money in the future. We just need legislation to allow them to earn more money than just the 9-month trial, the 3-month extended, or the ticket to work program. We need more. We need changes that allow the disabled to earn some side cash. And that maybe that's the thing. You know what I mean? Maybe one day after the law firm, I can spend more time figuring out exactly how to get the disabled to have more opportunities. And some people will say, well, I can't work. Well, I can't do this. Well, I can't do that. True. There are disabled people where there's absolutely no way that they can work. But don't BS me. You and I both know there's a chunk of them that absolutely can do a little bit of work every other day. And I think that if we're honest with each other, I think that the disabled, especially in the mental arena, would have a much better life, a much more fulfilled life, if they had buddies that they worked with. The VA does a great job with their, mental assessments, their group stuff, etc., compared to the SSA. Well, technically, the SSA doesn't do any job, right? Let's call it. There's no SSA programs for the mentally disabled. There's no SSA is. There's no hey, we're going to send you on a weekly basis to this therapist because we want to pay for. There's none of that. The VA has that. The SSA doesn't have that. The SSA says, here's Medicare, here's Medicaid. Go figure it out, buddy. Go figure it out, right? So, from my perspective, having an SSA that offered more services that directly automatically linked with the Medicare and the Medicaid, that would be better. But you want to know my big thing here? One of the things that would help the disabled and future disabled the most. Many of these disabled people need something before they're given benefits, which is basically some sort of small accommodation, financial, that would allow them to exist while they're applying for benefits and going to doctors. They need something like that. Will they do it? They can't afford it. until they figure out how to actually put money into the system. And then once people are found disabled, there's basically three main sections to that person's disability life. There's the, oh my goodness, I was just found disabled. This is amazing. This is amazing, right? I was just found disabled. This is amazing. There's that part of it, right? Then you get to they're settled in. They know where they're living. They know where they get their groceries from. They're settled in. And then there's the CDRs coming up part, right? They know a CDR is coming. They have to prepare for it. They're going to medical. They're trying to get doctors' opinions on notes and letters and this and that. Then there's that anxiety side where they're like, oh, I have to go in front of this person. I have to show that I'm truly disabled and I'm still as severe and I'm just as bad as I was, if not worse. Those are the three main sections of somebody being on disability benefits. Each one of those sections needs something. When they first get their benefits, the number one thing that I see disabled people make a mistake with is what they use their back pay benefits for. They're getting better, but a lot of people use their back pay benefits to go ahead and give to their family and friends to go ahead and make up for having to borrow money. I get it. But that's the worst thing you can do. Unless they're going to, continue to give you a spot to rent or whatever. Otherwise, it's the worst thing you can do. If a disabled person gets $30,000 in back pay, what do you guys think is the smartest thing that they should do? What do you think? Because I can tell you exactly what it is. It's the biggest expense they're going to have that they need to have ownership over, which is buying something cheap that maybe has a little bit of a monthly payment to it that is where they live going forward. Putting a down payment on a single wide trailer on a piece of land, whatever. That is the most important thing they can do. If they can find a multiple room trailer and have other people rent those rooms and just pay them, that's the best thing they can do. Spending the money to go to Disney, that is not the best thing. Going on a cruise because they've been found disabled and they're excited, that is not the best thing. Those are dumb things to do. Those are terrible things. You're blowing away your money. Getting a fancy car, dumb thing to do. Incredibly dumb thing to do. It is essentially getting your housing worked out. That's the most crucial thing. And you know why? Disabled people don't realize when they're found disabled what's coming up next. When people are found disabled, they're not focusing on how many years they're going to be on disability benefits. Sure, they might say, oh, for the rest of my life, but they don't constructively see that. The timeline of they've existed this long and now for this length of time, even more time, they're going to be sitting there with that little monthly check. So there's that where they don't get it of how much money they're going to have for the rest of their life. We've covered a lot of things in this video. We've had people hate me because I was realistic about each candidate. I'm okay with that. If you want to hate me because I tell you something that, pushes the button of the person that you think is perfect in all way. And just a side note, there's nothing perfect about Biden. There's nothing perfect about Trump. They are two old men, right? There's nothing perfect about Harris. Harris is the most inactive vice president, the most inactive future potential president that I've ever seen. Like, you cannot compare Harris to even our shittier past presidents. She's just not interactive. We don't see her interviewing. And that's the thing is, like, in order for me to believe in her more, I would need to see what changes she wants to make from what Biden had. And I've watched her do a couple of speeches, and I have to be honest with you, I do not like modern American political speeches because they're all total bull. I like the classic British speeches. At this time and on this date, we are going to meet with this person about this issue to fix it. At this time, at this date, we intend to put a bill in that intends to do this. I like item lists in bullet point form about what's going to be done. I don't give a shit about the emotional connection that the politicians are trying to make with me. I don't give a shit about that. If they're trying to emotionally schmooze me, which you see more on the Democrat side, right? Although Trump does a lot of that on his stuff, but not traditional Republicans. They're not good at that. But if you see them trying to schmooze me or be like, wouldn't this feel better? Wouldn't that be great? Don't you want to love this? And don't you think it's amazing? No, I don't give a shit. Just give me what you're going to change. Tell me which law you want to change and what sentences in that law you are going to change. What's the wording you're choosing? What does it look like? What's the intended consequence of this all? So to me, that's what I would prefer. But again, my ideas are not pro-Trump and they're not pro-Biden. The only politician I even really like right now is Martin O'Malley. That's the only one I even like. And that's not because he's the commissioner of the SSA and I work with that agency all the time. It's not. If I didn't like him, I would tell you all the things on this channel that I don't like about him. I just really like him because he's engaging the SSA social media platform. He's coming out with amazing changes to the restrictions so that it makes it easier for people to get maximum benefits. He's pushing Congress to go ahead and get additional funding, more aggressively pushing so that, the wait times for disability benefits are much shorter. People can get the SSA on the phone much quicker. He's like an executive for the SSA that we haven't had in a long time. And he's very transparent because he's showing us the graphs of how shitty it is right now. Just think about that for a moment. Most executives don't want to show they don't want to show you the graphs of how bad things are, right? They don't want to show you, here's where it is, here's where it is, because if it doesn't get better, it makes them look bad. It makes it look like they're not doing the job. The only people not doing the job is the president, the Senate, and the House. Those are the only people not doing the job at this point. So I would prefer that the politicians currently presented before the Senate, House, and the President of the United States, the office, would give me specific details on wording that they want to change in the bills that exist, or create new wording that would be submitted to Congress to be voted on. I would also like to force certain committees to have to vote on things within so many days. You know how a lot of people are stuck on this whole you can only get 2 terms in office of that particular office? Okay. I would also like the committees, committee on finance, committee on this, committee on that, committee on this, committee on that. I would also like the committees to be forced to have to vote on things that come in front of them within a certain timeline. I would have to. I would have to request that and demand that. How many bills for Social Security benefits have been submitted to committee but never made it out of the first committee? Most. Or have it made it past the second committee? Damn near all of them. Right? If we force them to vote, then they're going to actually have to know what these things are and press the green or the red button. If we don't force them to vote and push them and make them do it within a shorter period of time and get it done, then you'll just see, this seasons of political leaders didn't decide to actually work on that. And this season of political leaders simply put a tack on that particular one. And this season of political leaders decided to wait until the next year to come around because there just wasn't an appetite in Congress for it. Bullshit. Force them to vote on it. Force them to read it. There is no reason why politicians whose only job in America is to read bills and decide if they can pass it on to the next committee, if they can refer it to another committee, there is no reason why we can't force them to vote on it. That's it, and you know what I mean? We're just never gonna. Yeah, and then Mike there, Barco Mike, put 2100 Act never passed. That thing never even got legs. That thing never even ran through committees. That thing is stuck in committees. Baby Boomer said 1955. Will Trump bring the deficit to zero? I don't think Trump can fix the deficit. I think he can help the economy far better than Biden, but we're 35 trillion in debt. You would need a magician with a Harry Potter wand and some unicorn magic to actually do, some helpful damage to that number. It's just not going to happen. I know a lot of people have people have blind faith when it comes to Trump and his ability to do magic with the economy. He's better than Biden. I will grant you that. But there's no way he can fix that in 4 years. If you gave him 8 more years, he couldn't fix that. It's a generation. It's going to take, if we consistently did the right thing for 12 years, maybe we could get the deficit down. Are we going to get it to Clinton era 0? Nah, no. In fact, the best changes for Social Security benefits were going to happen during the Clinton era. And then, of course, the whole Monica Lewinsky thing happened. And then all those got taken off the table. So it is what it is. My apologies. This video went way too long. I have to go prepare for the next video. But I do appreciate you guys. I know some of you get mad at me for things that I say, and I don't say them to make you mad. I just say them so that you can think about them, because if you don't think about them, you're just going to keep going down the road you were on. And I understand sometimes we get calls from guys who just can't handle the idea. And the thing is this: if you really feel inherently aggressive about something that I've said to the point where you just can't handle it, one thing you should ask yourself is why a simple idea that has no physical capacity to meet you, to come to you, to interact with you, why that idea is so dangerous to you. I agree, some ideas are dangerous. I agree. But I don't think anything I've said has been that egregious to the point where people should lose their mental state. Rude Rabbit said, "You can't handle the truth." Great movie. Amazing movie. I just want you guys to think about this stuff, because at the end of the day, if I don't give you these things, you're not going to know about it or think about it. Or if it comes to you, it's going to usually be from some ABC News, CNN, Fox News, thing like that. I mean, did you guys see what happened today? It was absolutely hilarious. It was hilarious. They literally had a legacy news station bringing in the governor and the town hall president, and bringing them in to say, "Oh, there's nobody eating any cats or dogs." They brought all these politicians in who are being paid to be there to give statements about, "Oh, there's just none of that's going on." They do have police reports of it occurring. Culturally, it makes sense. You don't technically need police reports for somebody to say that it's happened. You just need a human being who had a pet that doesn't have a pet anymore, and another human being who had a pet who doesn't have a pet anymore, to say those things. You don't even need police reports. But again, this is all happening because the American people caught, I forget what it was maybe ABC or CNN or whatever it was. They caught that news station basically biasing against Trump. And it was interesting because they did it to themselves, and now they're stuck. Like, how can you prove that somebody didn't have their pet stolen and eaten? It's their word against the entire news station, and bringing in the governor isn't going to fix that. So I thought it was hilarious. Like, our legacy news, final thought, and then I have to go. And then I'm going to prep the other video, which is about basically chip implants into the brain, how they're becoming illegal in most states, and the government can't force you, but there's other ways that they can go ahead and make the culture of it likely to get you to get one. Okay, final thought. Influencers on social media are far more powerful than legacy news at this point. Legacy news has this horrible situation facing them. They know that Americans don't trust them anymore, right? I mean, you'll get somebody in the chat or the comments later who will be like, you'll get somebody who will be like, "Oh, but I love CNN or I love Fox News." Fine, cool. Even though if you go look at the videos where they're all, those news anchors are given the same script and the same thing to say, they'll say the same thing across all those networks. They're all fed the information from wealthy people who control it. Okay, there's no way around it. Whereas us YouTubers, right, a lot of us give you what we see in our field and give you what our actual opinion of the thing is. We give you the reality of what we're seeing and what we believe. And it's more direct than some person who claims that they can interview people and get a better understanding. right? A reporter is never going to have as good of an understanding about Social Security benefits as I am, as somebody who works in the field, constantly deals with it, interacts with the good and the bad of it. And people are realizing that. They're realizing that the professionals that are in the field are far better to get the information from directly than some reporter who can potentially spin it. Faded Glory, thank you. It's always a beautiful name. Faded Glory, thank you for the $4.99 donation. Super appreciate it. Super appreciate it. I've always loved that name, Faded Glory, because it's either in reference to like a United States flag or potentially, honorable, things that military personnel would wear when they're aging, etc. But bottom line is this. What happens when social media influencers are more powerful than legacy news channels? Because remember, YouTube is worth more than all the legacy news channels combined. You could take every single legacy news channel, combine them, and YouTube is worth more than them. So from a financial standpoint, we know YouTube has more value to the American people because it's valued at a much higher level. From a content creation point, we know that bottom line is YouTube is going to create significantly more content per minute than any legacy news channel could ever. So what happens now is legacy news continues to slide out of relevance into the shadows of what they used to be. YouTubers, Facebookers, X-platform people, they grow and grow and grow in popularity. They become the new Johnny Carson, but on a social media platform. What ultimately will happen is that people will no longer tune in to traditional TV. Because let's call it like it is. It's just easier to get to YouTube. It's a hell of a lot cheaper. And at the end of the day, you're getting a lot more people who are much more directly connected to the reality of it. People don't want to watch a video, okay, to be fair with this, of news anchors talking about what happened on the scene. Because you could just give a bullet point list of what happened on, the little bullet point on the screen. This happened at this time, at this place, and this thing. Here's the here's the issue evidence. Here's the gray wiggle room. And then boom, they show you the video of what happened, the car chase. And then you, with your own eyes, figure it out for yourself. You can figure it out. You can watch the crime occurring in front of you and know exactly what's going on. You don't have to have the news anchor spend 30 minutes. Well, okay, so if you had a 30-minute block, the news anchor would show you the car chase for maybe 10 minutes, and then the other 20 minutes would be them bullshitting about something. You don't need that. You can figure out what's going on. You just need the bullet points. It's happening on this road. He's gotten into this many different cars. He's going at this speed, and this is the problem. Boom, show you the video. That's it. That's all you need. Anyways, I will catch you guys a little bit later. I understand some of you agree with the ideas. Some of you hate the ideas. But again, they're just ideas. They're not going to bite you. So if you wake up and you feel sore, one of them bit you. I will catch you at the next video. We're going to be talking about an amazing thing, which is basically how states are voting to restrict, essentially, the capacity of the United States government at the federal, state, and county level to require you to install chips into your body going forward. All right. I will catch you at the next video. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you do like the channel and it gives you new ideas, please remember, head over to Google, go to Disability Resolution, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution Florida, and throw some love by throwing some stars up there. Also, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. And if you want to have a private hour where you can ask me some ridiculously tough situation that you're in with your Social Security benefits, or you want to run hearing questions because you can't get your attorney on the phone, which is, I get a lot of those, that's fine. Little mini contract is below. I will catch you a little bit later. Please have a wonderful night, and we will go from there. And I will be back soon. Give me about 10, 15 minutes, and we'll be ready to go. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.